for attending, and we value your time today, so we're going to do everything we can to ensure that it's time well spent. I'm going to introduce our presenters shortly, but the topic of today's discussion is integrating the automated and manual appraisal analysis. My name is Norm Koenig. I run the sales organization here at Platinum Data Solutions. I've been in the technology for mortgage lending space for over 25 years. I've got a passion for using technology to solve business issues and have had great success in doing so throughout my career. I feel very fortunate to be part of the Platinum Data Solutions team. Hosting these webinars is one of my favorite things to do. Feel free to reach out to me at any time. My email address is down below, and I'm also available on LinkedIn. If you have any questions at any time, please write them down as they come up in the questions window to the right. You'll see it on your GoToWebinar panel. There should be a questions tab over there, so go ahead and click in there and enter your question. We're going to have a brief question and answer session at the end of the webinar today. Also, we're recording this webinar, so we're going to be able to post it to YouTube. So we're going to email all the attendees and even the non-attendees, those who registered and didn't attend, so that you can replay this or share it with others in your organization. We've got a great turnout today, and I'm confident that you'll come away from the session more knowledgeable about Platinum Data Solutions, about racial dollar risk management, and about general best practices for appraisal review. So Platinum Data is, think of us as all things collateral and technology. We've been in business for a dozen years, and we offer the services in the 4 channels shown here on screen. We're going to really be covering the first 2 channels in pretty good depth during this webinar, but I wanted to make sure that you're aware of the full breadth of services and solutions that we offer. So in addition, we have the Valuation Analytics channel. We're the largest independent reseller of AVMs in the country. We also offer some mortgage services like 4506Ts, flood certs, etc. The website is shown below, and additional contact information is going to be available at the end of the webinar. So general themes for the webinar, we're going to be talking a lot about efficiency, consistency, and thoroughness. This will become apparent as we go through the PowerPoint today. And task differentiation, understanding which tasks can be efficiently and effectively automated, and then understanding which ones are more inherently manual, and applying the best technique to each is going to be the key to everyone's success. So I'm going to introduce our second presenter first. Lisa Binkley joins us from Fort Worth, Texas. She is Platinum's SVP of Client Strategy and Implementations. You may have read one of her many articles written in various trade publications. You may have seen her on panels at mortgage banking conferences, or you may have noticed that she was named as one of only 20 in Housing Wire magazine's Women of Influence in 2013, alongside such notables as Janet Yellen and Elizabeth Warren. I think Maxine Waters is actually also on that list. Our first presenter is also from Texas. He is the VP of Quality Control, Fraud, and Risk at Racial Dollar Risk Management, Mr. Tim Irvin. Like Lisa, Tim is well known to those of you who attend MBA and other conferences, as he's often served as a panelist on those sessions, particularly around the issues of risk and fraud. So you probably noticed that since each of us have over 20 years of experience, 25 years of experience, you could reasonably conclude that we're all old. Well, it's reasonable but not accurate, because we all started in the field at the ripe age of 11. So. And also, while I can build up Tim and Lisa, I don't actually need to. The Mortgage Bankers Association of America has really done this for me. They sought out both Tim and Lisa to serve as panelists on a session at the upcoming MBA Risk Conference in Miami from September 7th to the 9th. The session is called Risk Management and Third-Party Origination Channels. So I'm looking forward. I'll be attending that, and I'll be curious to hear what Tim and Lisa have to say on that panel. I'm going to turn things over to Tim here in a moment. He's going to start by telling you a bit about racial dollar risk management, and then he's going to dive into the manual appraisal review items. Tim?
Thank you, Norm. I appreciate it. Good afternoon or good morning, everyone, depending on where you're located. We're glad you can make it today, and hope the information we're going to share with you will help you during your automated and manual appraisal analysis. As Norm said, I run Rachel Dollar Risk Management, which is a firm that's located in the Lewisville, Texas area. The firm was formed by Rachel Dollar, who is a well-known attorney in the mortgage industry as a proponent for banks and lenders within the fraud and risk areas. Our services that we provide, we focus on pre-funding and post-closing quality control reviews. We do repurchase reviews, fraud investigation services, both internal and external scheme investigations with fraud training, and various audit services, including the BSA AML audits, your annual Fannie Mae QC plan audits, servicing audits, and we also perform various risk assessments for lenders across the United States. Next. So what I want to do today is I want to get started on discussing why we're here today is to try to help you to maximize the outcome of your automated appraisal analysis and your manual analysis to validate the collateral value that's being provided to you at origination by either your AMCs or possibly your internal appraisers. As everyone's well aware, lenders are struggling right now to make financial gains. There are many factors that are contributing to these struggles, including the skyrocketing compliance costs, originations are stagnant, inventory is decreasing. It's critical in today's environment that the valuation being provided by your appraiser is accurate. Today's presentation will help you to understand what you can do individually to determine whether the value of the property is a reasonable value. Next. What I'm going to discuss first is how an auditor who is reviewing an appraiser can quickly yet efficiently review certain elements of the appraisal to see whether there are any inconsistencies that may require additional review. As you'll see as I go through my part of the presentation, I'm going to use the word consistent a lot. And the reason I do that is when you're looking at an appraisal, you want consistent data across the appraisal, and you want consistent data with the other loan documentation. And I think it's important that the people that are attending understand what the rules are that an appraiser has to operate under. The rules are defined by USPAP, which is the Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practices. Value is never a fact, it's an opinion. It's critical that we remember that because we've got to come to a reasonable opinion of the value of the property. It's important that we understand that USPAP describes that a value can never be overvalued or undervalued. It's a violation of their rules to overstate the value or understate the value. Next. As an auditor reviewing appraisals manually, we want to focus on identifying any irregularities that may appear. If you're using technology like Platinum Data's RealView service alongside your manual review, you're providing a very thorough and complete analysis, which again helps determine that a good collateral valuation has been derived. Whether using RealView or not, you as the auditor will want to make sure the data is consistent with the appraisal and within the loan documentation. Does it make sense? If not, elevate the issue for additional appraisal review or management review. It's critical that as you're reviewing the appraisal, you look for incomplete data, including incomplete sentences, incomplete descriptions within the narrative of the report, or incompleted or non-completed data within the appraisal. Appraisers are required to fully complete the appraisal form. It's including the descriptors within the narrative of the report. Next. Though this may sound simplistic, one of the first things I always look at when I'm completing an appraisal analysis is the descriptors in the top of the first page of the appraisal. What I've found over the years is you'd be surprised how many appraisers are either not paying attention or are looking at wrong documentation or potentially even intentionally misrepresenting information on the appraisal. Simple checkbox elements such as the owner occupancy, the borrower's name, the type of the loan, even whether the property's been listed for sale. you'd be surprised at the number of times I've looked at an appraisal and seen that it's not listed, that it's checked as not being offered for sale, yet further down in the narrative there's conflicting information that it is listed for sale, or vice versa. It goes both ways. Additionally, neighborhood characteristics. This is a huge element that I look at when I look at an appraisal. Does anybody out there, and I know we can't answer this verbally, but do you go out and look at the boundaries of the neighborhood as defined on the appraisal? If not, you should. Go to Google Maps, go to Google Earth, or MapQuest, any of those services, and look at how the appraiser is describing the neighborhood. I was looking at an appraisal recently where it was in Los Angeles, and the appraiser had shown that the boundaries of the neighborhood were alongside, in Hollywood, California, alongside one of the major thoroughfares in California. Yet he extended that boundary approximately 3 miles on the opposite side of the thoroughfare, which, if anybody's familiar with Los Angeles freeways, knows that that's a huge subdivider of neighborhoods and businesses, etc., within the Los Angeles area. So I knew immediately I had a problem because he had expanded his area of description of the boundary of the neighborhood itself. Those are the little type of elements that, as you're going through an appraisal from a manual review, that you want to look for, that inconsistent information. Next. When you're looking at the appraisal, if you're feeding it through an LOS system, a lot of this data will be able to be checked off via the real view report that will validate the consistency of that data. Yet there are certain elements that the real view report cannot validate because it's descriptors, and the descriptors are the part you as an auditor will want to look at. Look at the description of the property, the internal description, the number of rooms, etc. Then when the appraiser is describing what he saw or she saw when looking at that property within the description area, make sure that it matches up. If they're showing that the property has been renovated or remodeled, make sure that that is accurately described. Take that information and compare it against the pictures that are shown in the appraisal. I was actually looking at an appraisal this morning where the appraiser was describing a basement area. The basement was subdivided and there was a crawl space under part of the appraiser, yet he showed it as a full basement. In actuality, it was a partially constructed basement with a crawl space under the other area. And the pictures fully define that as you're looking at. Now, that might seem minor as you're going through, but as the inconsistencies add up, those are when you want to look at possibly taking that appraisal and having additional review completed on it, or even make sure you have a process internally that you elevate to the management for further review if required. Next. One of the key areas I look at when I'm looking at an appraisal is on the top of page 2. And the reason I do this is what I create a value picture for myself. And what this area of the appraisal shows is the comparable properties that are currently offered for sale, and then on the second line directly below it are the number of comparable sales which have occurred within the prior 12 months. What I provided you here is an example of an appraisal that I was looking at, where the appraiser utilized a huge pricing bracket for the subject property. And the reason that an appraiser will do this is they're trying to expand the number of comparable properties to arrive at a property that matches the value of the subject. And in actuality, that's a reverse concept of what should be taking place, which it should be based on description, style, size, shape, room count, square footage, etc. When you see an example such as the one I've shown you here, where you've got a large bracketed range of value from $90,000 to $700,000 for comparable properties, it's giving that appraiser too excessive of an area of opportunity to go out and find a comparable based on value itself and not on the actual description of the comparable property. So as you look at this area and you're doing your manual review, use this as a guide. I call it my value picture because it really brackets in my mind what that price value should be for that subject property. This is always a key indicator of an inflated appraisal when you see an appraiser that is stretching, extending the bracket pricing for the comparable sales and the comparable prior sales. Next. When you're looking at the comparable property descriptions, make sure the appraiser has explained the adjustments within the narrative. Don't just accept that there are adjustments. They have to make sense and they have to have relevance to the subject. Always review the size, square footage, and the description of the properties so that you make sure that it is consistent with the subject. The sales price of the comparable properties is not nearly as important as finding properties which were consistent in description, size, square footage, etc. to the subject property. Next. Look at the supporting loan documentation to make sure all of the data is consistent. Does the Schedule B of the title abstract match the sales history as reported by the appraiser? It should. If not, this is a reason for additional review or possible management escalation. Some of these things may sound simplistic, but remember, we're looking for thoroughness and efficiency as we do our manual reviews. We don't have time to go through a 20 to 30-page appraisal and look at every single detail of that appraisal to determine whether you derived a good value. We as auditors don't have time to do that, so we've got to narrow down our scope and come to a very consistent review pattern that allows us to, as we go through appraisal after appraisal, to find irregularities or inconsistencies. Always match the sales data for the comparables to the information as shown on the real review report to make sure it's accurate and consistent. Utilize all of the sources of information available to you as the auditor, and you'll be doing your part to establish that the value as reported on that appraisal can be supported. Or if not, then potentially you've protected your company from financial harm. Always be inquisitive, think outside the box, yet be efficient when using all the sources of information you have at your disposal. And you'll be doing what is expected of you by your company. And my last point I want to make as we do this manual review is we've got to balance the use of the manual review along with the technology. The technology part that Lisa is getting ready to talk to you about momentarily is very useful as an auditor as you're going through your review process. Some of you might be getting more information back on the reports than others, and it's really based on whether that information is feeding across from your LOS systems. Even if you've got limited information, that information is going to be critical because again, you're looking at irregularities or the inconsistencies within that appraisal. Take that data, look at the other documentation within the loan file, look at other sources such as what I described earlier about looking outside of the neighborhood boundaries. And as you do that, you're going to find that your review process is much more efficient, much more consistent, and if there are any irregularities, you're going to be identifying them on a more regular basis, which again will make you shine within your organization. I appreciate you taking the time to be with us today, and I'm going to turn it over to Lisa so she can, at this point, talk to you about some of the elements of RealView and how that's utilized from a technology standpoint. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tim. What a great job. It is really important to be reminded. I don't care how long we've been in the business, but it's really important as organizations and as people responsible for risk in an organization that we truly remember all the components and all the facets of our job. So basically what you just covered is what needs to be compared and reviewed and what needs to match, and then what can be red flag indicators. I'm going to talk really about combining automation with a manual process and then the difference between system review and human review. It's really important to understand, what a system can do and what a human can do. Really a system is best suited to the same process, the rote tasks every single time, because a system doesn't doesn't have to answer a phone, or a system doesn't have to talk to a loan officer. So it's not going to miss any of those tasks. Like a person, we get busy in our day. We have to go to the doctor's appointment. We have customer calls. We have loan officers stopping by our desks, or meetings that we have to attend. So a person is really best suited to applying various layers of logic to determine the best outcome for mitigating risk. So when you combine these, it really creates the best of both worlds. We can focus on making sure that all the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed, but then we can also focus our human reviewers on an exception-based review. So instead of our human reviewers going through every box, every page, every single time, we can focus them on what's wrong with that page versus what's wrong and or right with that page. And this combines to really create a quality manufacturing process. So this is just an example on this next slide of what a system cannot do. And what a system cannot do is really add context to anything. So, and Tim really advised that it's very important that you read appraiser commentary in the report, because when you've got exceptions in that report, I think one of the things that we were talking about, comparables, if the appraiser has to make a significant amount of adjustments, say 25, 35, 40% adjustments or greater than 10% line item adjustments, they need to provide you with commentary of why they did that. So what I can do with a system, I can program it to look for commentary regarding adjustments, but you as the reviewer are the one that can put that commentary into context. A system also can't tell you that a photo is a kitchen or a bathroom. I can tell you a label's there, and the label says it's a kitchen, but it can't tell you that that's exactly a kitchen. And it also can't verify a sketch between what the appraiser has talked about with the appraisal report. So those are the types of things that a system cannot do, and that's one of the things that we as humans can apply logic to understand that it is accurate and what the appraiser is trying to say in their comments. So in RealView, I want to show you what the system can do. In the real world today, when you sit down and look at an appraisal report for the very first time, you have no idea what's in front of you. You have no idea how little or how much you're going to have to do to review this report, how many exceptions you're going to find. The great thing about using an automated process is at a glance, by using scoring, you can understand the quality of that property that's in front of you and the quality of the job that the appraiser did. So immediately you know by looking at the compliance score in RealView that it's got a fair score regarding how this appraisal fit with the assignment of the published USPAP and agency guidelines. And then you can see that it's got like a 941 or a good score as it pertains to the best practices or credibility. How credible is this report? Did the appraiser use best practices and industry standards to create the methodologies and techniques of this report? And then lastly, you can also see the last C. We call these the 3 C's of collateral. You can see the complexity of the assignment for the appraiser. Is it a 3-bedroom, 2-bath subdivision home in Southern California, or is it a more complex property? Is it a custom home on acreage in the middle of Tennessee? You can also take this type of information at a glance and look down here at our key findings. You can see how they scored as far as severity, and then what area they were impacting of the 3 C's of the value. Lastly, you can define workflows based on those scores and facts, not subjectivity. The other thing the system can do at a glance is give you appraisal details. So instead of digging into the appraisal report line by line, you can immediately, when you glance at that first page of your automated report, understand that you've got a purchase of a property in a suburban location where the demand and supply is imbalanced. Then you can also look over here on the right-hand side and you can see here's all the values that you're dealing with in that appraisal report. Your appraised value, your contract price. You can see if in the event if you use an AVM with that to validate value. But you can also see from the appraisal report the predominant value and how your property fits within that prominent value and what kind of variance is there. And then you can also see in the low to high values for one-unit housing, you can also see that range of value, and then once again how your property fits in there. At a glance, you can quickly see whether the appraiser bracketed the attributes of the subject property with the comparables that were selected. And then you can also compare market analysis. That's one of the things that you're going to hear me talk about today, is you need to understand your appraisal report compared to what? How do you, unless you use market intelligence, what's the information around your subject property, you really don't have anything to base or benchmark your appraisal to. So at a glance, you can find out all of these details versus having to wait and to know that by going through every single page in the appraisal report. Now, I showed you on the first page the scoring. Those are Platinum Data's proprietary scoring rules. The great thing about an automated tool, and what should be applied in every automated tool, is the ability for you to also include your own rules, whether those are investor overlays that you need or whether those is just your organization's experience and what you want your underwriters or your collateral reviewers to look for. You can apply those rules. So in this example, you can see that you have a bar up top that tells you all the rules that were applied by this specific client. They did 106 rules, but of those 106 rules, there were already 79 of them that were already cleared by the system. So once again, the automated systemic review cleared the majority of those rules, and so then we needed to focus on 9 rules that were the exceptions. And this is really where you need your reviewer to focus, is where the report does not meet your needs. The other thing that you can do here is you can advise the reviewer of the next steps or the requirement when these rules require action. And this type of tool should be customizable to you. It should be something that you can add or edit rules as you go along in your lending environment. So as you heard me reference earlier, you really need to know the market intelligence that's around your subject property. So when you have something really that you can compare your appraisal report to. In our automated review process, or RealView, the Platinum Data tool RealView, we provide you with interactive mapping. And so it shows you all of the appraisal comps. You can see that those are the gold boxes here, all of the comparables that were used by the appraiser. And then we also show you the nearby sales records, the local area MLS closed sales, and then also any other information that you think is important, like 18-month property transfers. So properties that may indicate you've got some flipping in an area, or if you've got a lot of foreclosures in an area. The great thing about this type of map is you don't have to leave RealView and go out and start searching the internet for MLS records or for Redfin or for Zillow or for Trulia. RealView can take you there, or it can show you this data right here in this map. Additionally, you can scroll in all the way down to the street level on this map. So it's interactive to you. You can see the bars across here at the top. And then lastly, Tim had referenced on his comments regarding the market boundaries from the appraisal report. You can do that using this map. You can zoom in on your map, and you can pick out the market boundaries around your subject property. One other thing that you can do with all of these nearby sales, you can see on this particular example there were 12 sales that we show you, and I'm going to show you those in just a minute. But you can also see that according to this tab right here, there were 43. There were a total of 43 total sales in the area. So one of the things that we provide you is the ability to filter the results, filter the nearby and public record sales by even closer or tighter requirements. So you can input a number here, or you can use these little sliders to make the requirements tighter, and then that will impact what is displayed to you of the nearby sales. So let's see how your appraisal comps rank in the market area. It's very important to know that that compared to all of the data that is in the market around the subject property, or really understand what the information was that the appraiser reviewed prior to choosing his comparables, or what was the market of the comparables that the appraiser had to look at when he was completing his assignment. So you can see here that we give you all kinds of ranking information here. We show you where your appraisal comps showed in the gold boxes, as well as the bold outline of the sample. And then we give you the score over here on the far right. So these were all the properties that were available, and of all those properties that were available, your appraisal comps were in the top 12. So on this next slide, we can quickly look at how we identify anomalies. I think on the previous slide, you saw that there were fields on that slide that were red. So what we're going to show you is what the appraisal report showed you and what the public record details are. And so anything that is in red on that record is going to be displayed here. So you, as the reviewer, can compare them and come to the best determination of which record is correct. Obviously, the appraiser is the boots on the ground. They've gone specifically on the appraisal on the subject property, and then they've done some deeper research on the comparables. So you want to always keep that into mind, that the appraiser is very well versed and knowledgeable in the local market. But then when you have the public record data, you can also automate that process to compare GLA to GLA. You can compare bedroom count, bath count, sales prices between the appraisal report record and the public record nearby sale. You can put that on your rules, your automated rules, that your reviewer has to approve. You can also compare attributes like year built. So a system can tell you all kinds of information, but once again, it's the human that is the person who is making the decisions. What the system does is it's going to show you all the various discrepancies, if you will, as Tim brought up. If there's discrepancies, you either want to resolve them, use other resources to resolve them, or you also want to have a secondary process that you're going to escalate to within your organization. So I've showed you several things about the system requirements. I've showed you what an automated system can do. I've showed you what a manual process does and how it compares to an automated process. So I think that, really we can kind of summarize our next steps and really hold a robust question and answer period if you all would like. I'm going to turn it over to Norm.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Tim. You guys did a fantastic job. In summary, I guess what we need to know is which tasks can be automated, which can't. We need to take advantage of technology like RealView when there is something that can be highly automated, and take advantage of that to the fullest extent. And then the manual tasks, you need to perform them thoroughly in-house or outsource to a competent third party like our friends at Rachel Dollar Risk Management. Bottom line, let the humans and technology do what each one does best. So if you are able to do those 4 bullets above, then the results are going to be efficiency. You're going to understand the collateral risk as quickly as you can. There's going to be a consistency of process so that the same process gets duplicated across all of the appraisals, and it defends against audits and repurchase requests. And then nothing falls through the cracks, so there's a thoroughness to the whole process. So at this point, I'd like to go ahead and start the question and answer session. We've had some really, really good questions. And let's start with one. Should the appraiser/reviewer also note the cost per square foot of the sold comparables that should they bracket that of the subject? So I'll let Lisa or Tim address that.
You know, Tim, you want to address that?
I'll take it from a manual process first. When I'm looking at it manually, what I want to do is I want to make sure that the comparable itself, based on the square footage, that it is a consistent number. Obviously, I can't sit there and state when I'm looking at it manually that the number is exact to where it should be. But as an example, I was looking at one recently where my subject property was at about approximately 180 per square foot. Yet there was a comparable that came in at about $92 per square foot. Then there's another one on the opposite end that was in the $248 per square foot range. There was too big of a gap within that square footage range, and what it alerted me to, and again, I'm not making a definitive decision at that point, but it does heighten my alert that there possibly are better comparable properties out there, and the price per square foot is a driving factor in determining when utilizing a good comparable property. And I think, as Lisa will probably mention here in a second, based on the slide she showed earlier, in RealView, they also alert to that based on whether it falls within a set range of value within that square footage cost per square foot. Lisa?
Yeah, great. Thank you, Tim. That was a great question. I actually I was going to see if I could get our SVP Evaluations to give us a more detailed answer, but he had to take another call. So I will answer it from an automated perspective. You know, the word comparable is comparable, right? So the properties need to be comparable to our subject. What automation can do for you is it can provide a rule that, you know, basically says, is the square footage cost per square foot commensurate to the subject and or within, say, 10%? And so what we can do in automation is perform that logic for you against the cost per square foot, and then fire to you an answer that says it requires, you know, it was way outside, it was 30%. You know, comp number 3 is 30% more as a cost per square foot than the subject. And then that can invite you to take a deeper look into that. Or you can, as an organization, add a task in the middle of that rule that says to the reviewer, you know, perform, you know, send this over for secondary review, or obtain a desk review, or, you know, whatever your organization determines is the appropriate escalation for that exception.
Thank you, Lisa. And I think that kind of highlights, again, one of those things that technology is really good at doing math. And that's a very simple math problem, and so we can write a rule to address that very, very easily. The next question is, what impact does the ECOA disclosure rule have on appraisal review? I assume this is the one the January rule that says that all valuations need to be shared with the borrower. Lisa or Tim?
I'll take that one first, and then Tim can probably add more color. But basically, ECOA is requiring that the appraisal be sent to the consumer, and there really is appraisal be sent, or or any additional valuation methodology that the lender used to establish that value have to be sent to the consumer. That really has not impacted our process any or our or automation. I mean, if anything, you know, automation makes that task easier for the lender to comply with the requirement. Tim?
Yes, from my point of view, what I think the critical element there is, historically, I've been doing a lot of fraud investigation over the years. The one thing that I can tell you in talking to borrowers as I'm doing fraud investigations is they really had no clue what the property value was that they were dealing with. And the reason is when you have professionals in the industry that are taking advantage of borrowers and or perpetuating fraud schemes of some type, one of the key elements of that is they have to guide that borrower through the process. And as they're walking that borrower through, a lot of times the borrowers have blinders on. And this ruling now makes it a requirement that the borrower become aware of the value of that property early into the process. So hopefully some of those fraud schemes that were based off of keeping the borrowers in the blind will be eliminated as this goes forth and continues to grow. I think we're heading in the right steps on some of the rules that are being implemented. I think there's probably some stronger standards that could be put in place, but we're making good movement at this point.
You know, Tim, that's a really good point, and something I think that, you know, I always tend to reiterate once I have people in front of me. But it's just like criminals always break into your weaknesses. They will always identify a weakness and exploit that weakness. So that's why your strong processes and strong use of automation and manual processes and having strong policies and procedures are so important to an organization.
Well, and it's interesting, Lisa, because I've seen too that you know, I think lenders are a little bit less likely to run an AVM, for example, because of the ECOA disclosure guideline, because
Right.
it can create a lot of noise and consternation and confusion. But one of the things that we're coming out with within the next week or two is a fourth C. Lisa talked about the complexity, the credibility, and the compliance, and those are components that roll up into a RealView score. Well, there's a fourth component that we're adding too, which is the confidence and value. So a value confidence score is going to be part of RealView shortly, and that is a way of determining our confidence in that value without having to run an additional valuation product. So I want to make sure people are aware of that.
Oh, and you know, I think maybe the basis for that question was also, does the RealView report need to be sent to the consumer? At this point in time, many of our client organizations and our own internal legal department have determined that the RealView report is not covered under the ECOA requirement due to the fact that it does not indicate any other value information other than what is already on the appraisal. So, but obviously, that's something for anybody's internal legal to make that ruling.
Right. Thanks for that clarification, Lisa. Next question, how is someone reviewing a subject's neighborhood that is not familiar with the area understand that actual boundaries are there and you know, where those boundaries are, I guess?
Well, that's a great question. On the RealView report, when I showed you that interactive map, you'll be able to see, and I'm going to assume that anybody who is in charge of reviewing the appraisal report for a lending approval, you know, is going to have some knowledge and basis for understanding what that appraisal is telling you. So you'll be able to identify those boundaries on that map, and you're going to be able to see whether those boundaries are way too large, and whether they really cover, you know, they really aren't appropriate for the subject property and area. You'll be able to drill down onto that map and see even things like lot sizes and, you know, whether the homes have a very large footprint in their lot or if they have a lot more amenities than, say, the subject area does. And that's going to give you indicators that potentially those boundaries are too wide, and you're going to be able to ask questions. I think that's the most important thing that that reviewers need to understand is you don't have to have all the answers, but what you do need to do is ask good questions. When you've got when you have exceptions in front of you, or when you have a gut feeling that this appraisal report is just really not as indicative of the value as it needs to be, you need to go back to that appraiser, and you need to go back to that appraiser with precise information. RealView allows you to give that precise information. So, for example, and I take us back there, but I don't know that we have the time, and obviously anybody can follow up with us after this call. But when you go down on that map and you can see, you know, gosh, my subject property is a nice little, you know, 7,000 square foot lot, and it doesn't have a swimming pool or barns or, you know, detached garages and things like that, but all of my comps do, that's a time to ask that question. And you can go back to the appraiser and you can say specifically, your comparables have, you know, outbuildings and detached garages and a swimming pool. While you addressed all of those, are these adjustments really sufficient to compare them to the subject property? Or why did you use these to compare them to the subject property when my subject property doesn't have any of these amenities? Same with the neighborhood boundaries. You know, you just can be more specific when you have that market intelligence like that map will give you. I hope I answered that. Tim, you got any input on that?
I'd like to add just a couple real quick points. One is that as you're looking at that, whether it's on the RealView viewing where you can narrow it down to a street level, or whether you're even if you look at an outside mapping source such as Google Earth, it doesn't matter because they're all being produced in the same manner. Some of the things you'll see are you'll see not only neighborhood irregularities, but you'll also see property irregularities. And as an example, I was looking at a property in Atlanta where the appraiser showed there were no property deficiencies. Yet, as I look at the property, I noticed that it backs up to a freeway, and as you maneuver around and look further, I noticed that there's a drop-off of about 60 feet directly onto that freeway outside of the backyard of that property. That's obviously a property deficiency. And those are the type of small element things as you're going through and looking at it and understanding how to utilize the tools, how to utilize that manual review and technology, that you can combine them, and you push that back to that appraiser and make them explain that. You're doing your company a favor as you identify those issues.
Okay. Thanks, Tim. What should lenders be doing to make sure they comply with OCC or Fannie Mae appraisal review guidelines?
From my point of view, as I go out and look at lenders' policies and procedures, I think it's really that you have a very well-defined plan in place for your company. And what I mean by that is, like Lisa said a minute ago, very strong policies and procedures and consistent policies and procedures. If you're using RealView and you're using the manual review process jointly, make sure that's documented. Make sure it's explained what the process is for each element. And as you go through an audit scenario, whether it's OCC, whether it's Fannie Mae, whatever that element may be that's looking at your organization, you're going to have documented procedures and policies that explain how those tools are being utilized, how those services are being utilized, and what the outcome is. Track the outcome. If you find deficiencies through the automated or manual review, track that and keep records of it, and it's a good reporting tool as you move forward.
Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
That's so true, Tim. I mean, it's really important. Number one is that you understand what the OCC and what Fannie and Freddie or whoever your investor is, that you understand what their requirements are. You need to have somebody whose job it is to fully understand what your investors require in your originations, and then what if you have specific overlays or requests with those investors that you need to apply. That also needs to be documented. I think that that's the one thing that makes it so important today, and I think you hear me probably use that word a lot. It's so important. I could say it's key or it's critical, but consistency and efficiency must go hand in hand. Your organization is not in the business to just make loans. They're in the business to make profitable loans and make your organization profitable. Well, the only way you can do that in today's world, and especially in this regulatory environment that we're in, is by demonstrating to every single entity who audits you that you handle every single borrower, property, employment, etc. You handle them all the same way every single time. And that must be demonstrated in your policies and procedures. And it's not enough just to have those written policies and procedures. You're going to have to prove that you follow them. And so that's one of the things that having, using a tool like RealView does for you. You have that historical perspective. Every single loan went through my automated rule set. Every single loan went through Platinum Data's proprietary scoring rule set, and that process is established from a going forward and a historical perspective.
We have like 3 more questions. One of them is a follow-up from an earlier question or clarification. Because of that, Lisa, I'm wondering if you could maybe just advance to the last slide so our contact information is available there so people can start to maybe write that down if they need to.
Sure.
And then, so next question is an AVM model used in scoring? If so, who produces the model? Is your own automated review is it your own automated review process program, or was this written for your firm? I think I can handle that one. That's pretty straightforward. We actually do not use an AVM in any aspect of our scoring, including the new value confidence score. There's no AVM used in that. These are algorithms that we've created. Our valuation analytics expert is Bill King. He's a certified USPAP instructor. And he and Lisa jointly developed the scoring. And so, yeah, that is our own program that we've created. It's our intellectual property. And no AVM was used as part of that. So I think that covers that question. Next one is, would the confidence and value put RealView into the ECOA rules? I just kind of also indirectly answered that question. Because there's no AVM or valuation product being used as determining that confidence, there's really nothing additionally that needs to be shared with the borrower. We're simply determining whether or not there is a our confidence in that value that was provided by the appraiser. I don't know.
But once again, it's
thoughts on that. But
once again, Norm, it's based. That is our legal's opinion, and we would really want everybody to get their own internal legal opinion upon that.
Sure. Okay. And then, actually, there's 2 more questions. One other one just came in. How long does it take to get RealView into production? Lisa, as our VP of Client Implementations, I think you're probably the best person to answer that.
Sure. RealView can be immediately turned on in your organization. My practical experience tells me, and I work directly with our customers to strategize the implementation of RealView, and typically it's going to be about a week to 10 days by the time we put together your rule sets. The great news is that we have template rule sets that are lender best practices and AMC best practices, FHA best practices, those types of things. So we can quickly deploy an organization. We also train all of your users and consult with you on your rules. So it's a very fast process that can be done in a very efficient manner.
Yeah, and from my personal experience, I've been in the technology side and sales for a long time, and one of the things that was always a struggle was implementing a new technology like a loan servicing system or a loan origination system. This type of technology, all we really need is the appraisal. So depending, and we can get that in PDF format or in preferably a MISMO XML format, and it's just ingesting that, processing it, and running against rules engines. So there is the speed with which you can get this into production is kind of unparalleled. We've actually had people do it in a couple of days. If there's no custom rules, if they're happy with our default rule sets, then we can actually get them into production very, very quickly. Great question.
I think the same holds true on Rachel Dollar's side. You know, Rachel Dollar Risk Management is an organization who is new, and they use a lot of technology. And so it's and I mean, really, how we came about with this webinar is that Tim and team use our tools as part of their collateral assessment process, and so we felt that it was a very good opportunity to be able to put in front of you all, you know, really how an organization who is a manual process organization, you know, really implements the use of automation in their tools and put it on for your behalf. Not only about the process itself, but then also for tracking purposes. You know, we can quickly create reports for Rachel Dollar Risk Management on the reviews that they've seen and how many times their appraisers are missing this specific feature or this specific requirement, or how many times the variance exceeds 25%. That's the type of thing that we can do for Tim and team over there, and so that's how this webinar came about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Excellent, good point. Thanks for adding that. The last question was back to the boundary questions, little clarifications. The point of the boundary question is, will it show local grocery stores, schools, and such as they are key indicators for the appraiser establishing boundaries?
Yes, they will.
And that's through the mapping primarily,
That's
right?
through the mapping. That's through the interactive map. You'll be able to go down to the street level, and you will be able to see, I mean, I don't know that, you know, you'll necessarily be able to see the name of John Handley Middle School, but you'll be able to tell that it is if it's close to the subject property and it is some type of, you know, you'll be able to see it's a school with playgrounds, playing fields, etc. If it's a commercial facility such as maybe auto mechanics and stuff like that, you'll be able to tell that information.
Well, and one of the things that we showed here, we showed a map that was kind of fairly zoomed out. But
yeah, we should have shown it zoomed in.
Well, yeah, because it is interactive, so you can zoom
right.
in, zoom out, drag it around, do what you need to. We just showed a static screenshot within the PowerPoint, but the program is highly interactive, and anyone who wants to take a look at a demo of the system, just reach out to me or Lisa, and we can get something on the schedule for you. That is all I have today. I want to thank everybody for attending. A reminder that we will be sending everyone a link within the next couple of business days so that you can share this with others within your organization. But please feel free to reach out to us at any time if there's anything else that we can help you with. So thank you very much for your time, and have a great day.